All right, 1 second here. All right, so we're on holding by the Book of Leviticus Chapter 17. Again, we're on holding by the Book of Leviticus Chapter 17. We are still in verse 7, and we'll see we'll see how far we get. With verse 7, the Torah says, "Voice b'chuoid es ivchayim v'seirim asher heim zoynim achareim chukas olam tiazois lahem l'dorois." Right, the Torah says, don't slaughter, sacrifice the demons. Right, we've been speaking about demons the last number of weeks. After whom they stray, right? After whom they stray, it shall be an eternal decree to them for all generations. So one thing we saw last week, and that is that although it may look like idolatry, it's not idolatry. Right? It wasn't like they worshipped them, right, so to speak. Kind of like sorcery, I guess, in certain ways, but they don't worship them. Right? That's according to Forno, right? I think others will say the same thing. It's not the same, right? If it be idolatry, Torah would call it out as idolatry. I mean, it sounds like that, right? Definitely sounds like that because the Torah says, do not sacrifice, to demons. Now, that is the language, right? Shouldn't slaughter sacrifices to demons. So we mentioned, though, slaughtering in general, that's one of the four things that's part of idolatry, right? You slaughter to an idol. You wine libation, that would be forbidden. Bowing to an idol, right? So, there are a number of things the person does it to an idol, it's going to be forbidden. So slaughtering to an idol or slaughtering to anything really doesn't have to be an idol, right? Slaughtering to something they think has power or some level of power, whatever it may be, that's idolatry, right? Essentially that would be a Torah prohibition, death penalty, right? Be death penalty for idolatry, for Jew and non-Jew, for that matter, right? We're not gonna discriminate, but the Sforno over here says no. Sforno says we're not talking about that. Right? We're not talking idolatry. They didn't worship them. Actually, they could have been very helpful, right? In different ways, help them with different things. Okay, was not idolatry, right? So we went through that. We saw the Sforno that spoke about it. So it comes on the Kli Yakar. Now, the Kli Yakar, one of the great commentaries, says like this: what is this doing here? Right, we're talking about up until this point, right? We're talking about what do you call it? Yom Kippur sacrifice, and everything that went into it, and what it atoned for, right, and all that. So it comes on the Kli Yakar. First of all, Kli Yakar says, what are we talking about over here? Right? We're talking about where you're supposed to sacrifice. Where are these sacrifices supposed to be in the tent of meeting and all that. And if you don't do it there, you get spiritually cut off. Right? Obviously, if you're a Kohen. But he says, Ma Kesher, what in the world is the connection? Right? What in the world is the connection? So here, Kli Yakar says something very interesting. Kli Yakar says, first of all, First of all, heretics, they have the ability to make mistakes. Right? In other words, people, there are things written in the Torah that look one way, could be interpreted that way, but it's not that way. Right? This is why you need someone to teach you. This is why specifically you need oral law. Right? Otherwise, the English would say it's a little bit dodgy over here. Now, there are cases, let's say, by Sodom. Rashi says clear that God says, let us see what's going on in Sodom. Right before we wipe out Sodom. Let's see what's going on in Sodom. So what happens? So Rashi there says, who's he talking to? Who's God talking to? The plural we, right? The English we, who's he talking to? Right? So Rashi says he's talking to the heavenly court, showing his humility. But then Rashi says, but even if that's true, can't people make a mistake? Can't people make a mistake and think there's more than one God? They can become heretics. Very good. Right? So why put it in there? Why give people the opportunity to make a mistake? What's the answer? You got free will. This is obviously a test. And there are things that you look at that the Torah says, simple explanation, doesn't make sense. Very hard to make sense out of. Right? This be one of them. Right? In other words, heretics can make a mistake. They can make a mistake and think this is what they're worshiping. Right? That they sent out this seer, they sent out this goat, right, to the desert. They send it out to the desert. Right? And what does it sound like? What does it sound like? Right? What does it sound like? You're sending this out. One is Lashem, right? There was a Guru. If anyone remembers, there's lots were drawn. First lot went to God, second lot went to Azazel. Everyone make the mistake. The Ramban goes into great detail. We spoke about this months ago. People make the mistake and think Azazel is an idol or is idolatry. Right? That's what it sounds like. They're going to send it to Azazel. Sounds like a person. Sounds like a being. Sounds like something. Sounds like idolatry. Right? But obviously it can't be idolatry. And first of all, it's not even a sacrifice. Right? The animal gets sent out there and, desert takes care of the animal. However, the animal dies. It could die, 1,000 different ways. 1,000 different ways. Well, what's the bottom line? Sounds bad. Sounds like idolatry. Right? You're sending it to a specific person, a place, or whatever that has its own entity. That can do its own thing. Outside, it doesn't sound like it's God here. One, because the Torah says explicitly, one is going for the sake of heaven, for the sake of God. That's going to atone. Right? This other animal is going to go out and get destroyed. That's not a sacrifice. Remember, sacrifice has to be ritually slaughtered in a specific place. This cannot be a sacrifice by default. Right now, could people make that mistake as they see? 2 sacrifices. One's going to God, one's going somewhere else. Oh, sounds like there's more than one being. There's more than one deity. Person can certainly make a mistake. You're right. Person could make a mistake. But again, there's internal logic here, first of all. Because the Torah didn't say sacrifice there. So it can't be a sacrifice. So whatever, we went through that. But a person can make a mistake. Christians do it all the time, right? Person can make a mistake here. Right? The heretics can make a mistake. In other words, who are they sending this seer, this goat, this demon? Who are they sending him to? Send him to the demons. Send him to these goats. I don't know, master of the goats, whoever it is, whatever it is, in the desert. And that deity, or whatever you want to call it, they're essentially sacrificing to. Comes along, the Kli Yakar says, no, don't make that mistake. Right? Do not make that mistake. Right? Even though the heretics could have said such a thing. Okay. Right? Aren't there many things in the Torah? Again, you go back to Genesis. The Torah says, let us make man in our image. So who's God talking to? You can also say the same thing. Rashi says it more explicit by Sodom. But you could have said it over there very easily. Who's God talking to? He said, I was talking to the Heavenly Court. He's showing his humility. Very good. God need to talk to the Heavenly Court about anything? No. Does he need their advice? No. Doesn't need anything from them. Right? Does not need anything. So couldn't a person make a mistake and say, let us make God in our image? Couldn't they make a mistake and say it's more than one God? Yeah. They can make such a mistake. And if people make that mistake, right? We'll throw this out there. People make such a mistake. Are they liable? They're liable. 100% they're liable. They didn't think into it enough. They didn't learn enough. Right? That's the inclination thing. See, look at this. There could be more than one God. Does God want you to make that mistake? No. God's not interested in a person to make such a mistake. But we have free will. Right? Everybody has free will. No question. Right? So the Torah can be fake. And the Torah can say things that, that person could interpret totally the wrong way. Totally the wrong way. Become a heretic. Because of it. Yeah. So says the Kli Yakar further. He says, therefore, you're warned straight away. What do we, again, Kli Yakar asks the question, what's going on here? Why is this here? Because we're talking about sacrificing outside of the place you're supposed to sacrifice, i.e. outside the tent of meeting. So if you can't sacrifice there, very good. What does that have to do with anything? What is this thing about not sacrificing to demons? What does that have to do with anything? Comes along the Kli Yakar and he says, I'll tell you. He says, therefore, the Torah warns on sacrifice, and we're not on sacrifice. Right? And that God wants you to do it right. He wants you to sacrifice in the right place. Right? So therefore, what's God telling you here? Why is it here? In order to teach you, to prevent you from sacrificing to demons. He doesn't want you to sacrifice. Not only are you not allowed to sacrifice outside where you're supposed to sacrifice, right? So the Torah throws in as well. Don't sacrifice the demons straight away. Straight away. In other words, you might think, if we're talking about Yom Kippur, and we're talking about the Kohen Gadol, the high priest only goes inside, right, the Holy of Holies on Yom Kippur, maybe you think this also, right? Maybe you think you can do this also over here. He says no, right? He says don't make that mistake, right? But the Torah's coming to tell you. The Torah's warning you. Just like you're not allowed to sacrifice where you're not allowed to outside the appointed place. Not only that, you got to prevent it. You should be prevented. There should be a command. Don't sacrifice to anything you want. I.e., over here, don't sacrifice to demons. Right? That you're not allowed to do. That is forbidden. That 100% is that is forbidden. Comes on the Kli Yakar further. Says like the Sforno. And he says this goat was not served. And it wasn't sacrificed. Right? Usually idolatry, you sacrifice to it. Or wine libation to it. Or you bow to it. They said you can't say it's idolatry because they didn't sacrifice it. Right? This is not a sacrificial service going on. Because if you know what we said before, Leviticus chapter 17, verse 8. Right? The Ramban over there says, long discussion about this whole thing. about what do you call it? There's lots for Hashem, and there's lot for Azazim. Right? He speaks about it over there. Right? We spoke about it quite a bit. All right, I have to go back to all those videos we spoke about. But he says, clear as day, and that we mentioned, it's not a sacrifice. Right? 100%, 100% is not a sacrifice. Right? So it's not a sacrifice, not idolatry. Now, it might not be the right thing to do. Right? To worship it or whatever, or they're not worshiping it, but whatever they're doing with these demons. Yeah? Maybe not the right thing to do, but it's not idolatry. Right? It is not idolatry. Because essentially they're not sacrificing to it. Right? That's the whole point. That they're not doing. Right? They're giving this goat, sending it to the desert, and demons taking care of it. Whoever's in charge of the desert, they're taking care of this goat. This goat's gonna die however many ways. Doesn't matter. Well, that's not idolatry. Right? Says Kliyakar. So too explains the Ramban. Right? The Ramban in Leviticus chapter 17, verse 8 says the same thing. Right? So the language is over there, the God commanded to send out this goat, these he-goats, to the desert, to the Sar HaMoshel b'Mekoimos HaChorban. Right? So we mentioned this before also. There's a, somebody in charge, spiritual force, that's in charge of these places of destruction. Right? Just like, every nation has their guardian angel, quote unquote, pleading in front of it for, in front of God for whatever the nation needs, whatever it may be. There are spiritual forces in charge of the wind, keeping the stars together, I don't know, fire, other things, right? So there you got somebody in charge. You got this force that's in charge. That's in charge over there by these places of destruction, right? So therefore you sent the goat there, and the one who's in charge, whatever the spiritual force is, that's in charge of the desert, took care of the goat. How they take care of the goat? However they want. Threw it on the ground 100 times, threw it over a cliff, whatever the spiritual force did, right? They're taking care of business. But that's not a sacrifice. They're not sacrificing to this spiritual entity, right? So too, we have to realize that even with these spiritual entities, right, and they can go against each other, right? You can have a spiritual force. God puts an angel, let's say. God puts a spiritual force, an angel in charge of, let's say, the wind. God puts another angel in charge of trees, right? Keeping trees, together, whatever. So let's say this wind, God allows it to stir up, get very strong, make a hurricane, or here in Israel we'd say a hurricane, right? You make a hurricane over here. Now you got two forces against each other, right? You got the force of the wind coming 100 miles an hour, 160 kilometers per hour, let's say, and you got this angel, this spiritual force, trying to keep the trees together to make sure trees don't get uprooted. So you're gonna say who's gonna win? You got spiritual forces going against each other. So obviously one's going to be stronger than the other, right? There are different levels over here, which we're not going to get into, but there are different levels. The Ramchal says in Derech Hashem, there are different levels, right? Each, an angel can have, higher level, lower level, depending what its station is in life. Regardless, even if they go against each other, I can have a case, like in this case, where this angel, making this tempest, making this huge wind, this extremely strong wind, what happens? It's got stronger power than the one guarding the tree. So what happens to the one guarding the tree? So the wind wins, right? Let's say the wind wins and the angel protecting the tree can't protect it. And the tree gets uprooted, right? That's how it works. That's how it works. So you have these spiritual forces that God puts in charge of these places. They cannot, let's make clear, they cannot act on their own. Angels do not have free will, right? did this a few times on controversial issues. Angels cannot do whatever they want. They're messengers, just like this week's parsha. Yaakov sends messengers to Esau. Messengers could be humans, right? Regular people or important people, whatever, right? A messenger could be a messenger. A messenger can also be an angel, even if they're in the form of a human. So, and Esau would recognize that. So it could be that Yaakov sends angels towards him to placate him, whatever, in order that maybe it's going to rouse in him to do tshuva. It's going to rouse in him to repent, right? He's going to see an angel. He also grew up in the house of Yitzchak. He also saw his father Abraham. So it wasn't like he had no idea, what angels were, right? So some say that was Yaakov's way, trying to bring him back, trying to be impressed. Oh, Yaakov sending him angels. I got to repent. I got to be better, right? That's one explanation, one possible explanation. But at the end, you have these spiritual forces, right? Now, the bottom line with all this, and we mentioned this, before, is, and here someone asks, so I'll just deal with it. I'll just deal with it now, right? And that is, again, we don't see demons. Demons do not have the same power they once had. Right? Power has been drastically reduced. Right? They call demons in the language of the Torah, they call them mazikim. Someone who's a mazik is someone who causes damage. They hang out in certain places. The rabbis came in contact with them. They were very dangerous. Very, very dangerous. So we mentioned before, if anybody remembers, they don't have the same power. We don't see them. We don't come in contact with them. We have nothing to do with them. Time of the Gemara, it says, or the Sforno over here brought down that they were good helpers to them. They did things for them. They did things, good things. For the rabbis, also caused a lot of damage. Okay. Well, we don't have any contact with them. Today they don't have the same power, right? They don't have the same power as they used to. So do we always see all forms of demons? Right? And the answer is we wouldn't recognize a demon if it hit us in the face. We have no idea. What? First of all, they're in a human form, right? But they can do other things. They can do other things like humans. They can do other things like angels, right? So the question is, are they pure evil? Who says they're pure evil? Who said they cause damage? Causing damage doesn't necessarily mean they're pure evil. It means they just, they're reckless. Someone, even in humanistic terms, someone who's reckless in general, right? They cause damage. They'll pay the price, right? They will pay the price for causing damage, which is true, right? Does that mean they're total evil just because they cause damage? You could say they're negligent. You could say they're reckless. Okay, reckless is a strong word, right? Let's say they're reckless, right? Most times the rabbis came in contact with demons, they caused damage. They definitely caused damage. Yeah, there's different things to tell, if it was a demon or not. Whatever, that's not even the point, right? What is the point? It doesn't mean they're total evil. There's no such thing as a spiritual force being evil, right? Let's get that idea out of everyone's head. There's no such thing. God uses them as a messenger for whatever he wants. Now, they can do good things. They can save people, do other things, and they could create havoc, right? They could, like in the case of Abraham, you had an angel that, what was its job? Destroy Sodom. That was its job. So since that was its job, does that mean that angel is evil? Spiritual force can't be evil by definition. Cannot be evil. They don't have free will. If angels don't have free will, how can you ask if they're evil? If they cause damage, you're right. They might cause damage. Okay, that's what they're programmed to do. Doesn't mean they're evil. No such thing. By spiritual force, you can't say they're evil. No such thing. They can cause, they could be reckless. It's okay. They're spiritual forces, do different things. but they change also. In other words, they're given a message. God sends them, right? Let's say the case of Sodom. Takes this angel and he overthrows Sodom, wipes it off the face of the map. So now I'll ask the question, right? I'll ask the question. Does that make that angel evil? Why does that make him evil? Or her? It doesn't matter. Male, female, irrelevant, right? Does that spiritual force, we'll say in general, does that spiritual force, are they evil? Because they overthrew Sodom? See, this is a mistake. Isaiah chapter 45, verse 7. It says, and the Christians misinterpret this, they totally misinterpret this, they change the meaning, because the Torah over there says, Isaiah says, again, Isaiah is a prophet, right? Everyone agrees Isaiah is a prophet, no one disagrees. Isaiah says that God created evil. Now, that's a problem for Christians. That is for sure a problem for Christians. Why is it a problem for Christians? Very simple. Because evil is independent. If anything bad happens, God is good, right? Seemingly, God is all good. Okay. So if God is all good, then how can he make evil? So people will make the assumption, again, a bad assumption, a wrong assumption, and that is that God is evil. Just because he created it, and that's exactly what Isaiah says, that God created evil. Therefore, by definition, it does not mean he is evil. Now, people may say, so why did he create it? Okay, what's the answer? What's the answer Ramchal says in Derech Hashem? The answer is he created evil to test people. If people want to tap into evil, can they? Yes. Does he want them to? No. So why did he create it? To test people. People want to tap into it, they can. Who says God wants? That doesn't mean he's evil. He's giving people an opportunity. You want to go on the right path, very good. Right? I'll help you. You want to go on the wrong path, I'm not going to stop you. That's what the Gemara says. Right? That's what the Talmud says. So how can demons or any spiritual force be inherently evil? Right? That doesn't make sense logically. Because if God created a spiritual force, then the assumption is if God created it, he created it that way. Right? The assumption would be, well, then God is evil. That would be one assumption. Now, someone can say, God can create a spiritual force, but he can create it to be destructive. Okay? He can create, when things are, when there's damage caused, you don't see who caused it, whatever. So let's say God, took these demons and said, okay, I want you to take care of this, that, and the other thing. Go destroy this town. Go overthrow this town. Go, whatever. Does that mean they're evil? It doesn't mean they're evil. They're a spiritual force that have different functions. So you can have these demons, yeah, they may be destructive. They may be reckless. Very good. Right? Okay. Even if they aren't, doesn't mean they're evil. Because by definition, if they come from God, they can't be evil. Because God isn't evil. Regardless of what people say, that's the case. There are a lot of things. There are a lot of things and suffering that we see that we don't understand. Okay? And if we know God is all good, why does he do that? That's a classic case of suffering. That we've spoken about a number of times. Right? That's for sure. But that doesn't mean God's evil and God's a masochist. Even if you're going to tell me, see, by Rachel, she sees everyone around her having children, and she can't have children, right? So there are four people consider like their dad, a blind person, someone who's saras, someone who gets leprosy, whatever you want to call it, right? That we spoke about way back when. And someone doesn't have children, right? That's the third. Think of the fourth one in a second, right? So she says to Yaakov, what do you want for, she says, give me children. Everyone else is having children. I'm not having children. And he scolds her. He's like, what do you think? I'm God? You think it's out of my control. Totally out of my control. Right? But what's the point? What's the point over here? That someone doesn't have children is considered like they're dead. Right? It's considered like they're dead. So she's saying, so what happens? So why does it say by Sarah, by Rivka, by Rachel, they didn't have children, right? Sarah couldn't have children I mean, she never should have had children. God changed her nature, which is pretty miraculous, because she wasn't given the tools, and we'll keep this clean. It wasn't possible for her to have children. Physically, it wasn't possible. So God changed her nature. Totally changed her nature. Okay. Well, but why did they not have children for so long? Right? The Rebbeinu B'chai, others bring down, because God loves the prayers of the righteous. He desires the prayers of the righteous. Now, what's the problem? What's the problem? If God is all good, which we always say, if God is all good, then what is God a masochist here? Is what God wants? Right? In other words, God really wants to see them suffer, not be able to have kids. Right? Any woman out there, I shouldn't say today, because things have changed in a dramatic way, not for the good. Most women out there, at some point in their life, want to have a child, a natural child. That's in their nature. Say what you want. That you want to say, yeah, it's racist, it's this, it's that. That's what a woman wants. She wants to have a child, a natural child. I know someone would love to have a natural child. Not going to happen. Waited too long to get married. Now, they have other issues anyway. So they're not going to have a natural child. That's what this person wants, but it'll never happen. Right? It's biologically won't happen. So they're not interested in adopting. I don't think they have the money anyway, but let's say surrogate mother. But I don't think her eggs are good anyway. Regardless, they themselves want to have their own child. They want to give birth to their own child. That's what most women want. At some point in their life, at least one. At least one. So I know somebody told me, they said, am I in trouble because I never want to have kids? It's a woman, not a guy, right? A woman said, she can't have kids now. She's much older. Says, am I going to get punished for not having children? So for non-Jews, there's an obligation to have children. You can have one every 10 years, doesn't matter, right? But there's an obligation. Why? Why is there an obligation for non-Jews to have children? There's an obligation to populate the world. If you don't populate the world, it's going to be a disaster. And there are certain countries, the population rate's going way down, right? Barely having, positive population rate. So what next generation, what's going to be? Or 2 generations. You need people to do things wherever you live in order that society can function. It can't function if you don't have manpower. You don't have any, man, woman power, doesn't matter. You don't have anybody. That next generation. You're barely replenishing that generation. Right? So that'd be a disaster. That's why there's a command even for non-Jews. Again, they can be spread out, doesn't matter. They can, spread out every 2 years, 5 years, get 1 kid, 2 kids, whatever. But there's a command. There's a command because the world should be populated. Now, that being said, for most people, I would say for most women, a normal thing, again, maybe it's being too traditional today, way traditional today. And that is most women would say they want to have a child. I know someone I grew up with, no prospects of getting married. So they did in vitro. They wanted to have a child. They wanted to have a child. Okay, it's no father. So they'll hire one. Or whatever. Go to a sperm bank, and that's what they did. Right? So they have a child. Single mother. I mean, the mother's got money, whatever, but okay. So, but there's that desire. Now, if you tell me there are some people out there, you want to tell me there are some people out there, or a percentage of people never interested in having children, that goes against nature, goes against their own nature, right? The world's a crazy world today. It's a totally crazy world, but I'm saying in general, I mean, I'm not even talking about according to the Torah, right? I mean, it goes with the Torah for sure, right? But what are we saying? Most women want to have a child. They want to have a natural child. Doesn't matter, C-section or not, they want to have their own child, period. Today's a whole different thing. Today's a whole different thing, but you need people to have children, otherwise you don't have a population. And some places are in serious trouble, next generation. because they're not even, you got a lot of people that die every year. You need to offset that with kids that are being born. And if you have almost a negative amount, that's crazy. If the population is barely, replenishing itself. I mean, you need people to do all kinds of things. A city, a town can't function. You don't have people, right? You don't have people. But the point is that, back to my point here, and that is that, demons are not created evil. They may be destructive. They may cause damage. God uses them to hang out in deserts, to hang out in other places. I guess they don't come in contact with humans too much because that's what they do. That does not make them evil. You can call them reckless, okay? You need someone to take care of this mess. Bring in these demons. Bam, they'll take care of it, no problem. Right? They'll just destroy the place. It's like, imagine bring in, a person for a couple of hours. Has a family with like 8 kids, right? And the oldest kid is like 10, right? And a few sets of twins. I'm not gonna say they're gonna destroy the place, but for goodness sakes, right? Your place is gonna be upside down for those couple of hours. Run after this kid, that kid, whatever. Okay, right? So again, not exactly the same thing. Here, these things, they don't have free will. They do things like humans, okay? Right? They don't necessarily have free will. They're a spiritual force. They're essentially a spiritual force. Right? So the first answer is, are they pure evil? No. They're not, the simple answer is, or the long, short answer, or short, long answer is, they can't be pure evil. They cannot be pure evil. Right? So, they're pretty much programmed also. They're, you say, half human, half spiritual. They're really a spiritual entity. Ramchal, when he speaks about in Derech Hashem, he calls it a spiritual entity. It just so happens, though, they have certain characteristics like humans. Yeah, but essentially they're a spiritual entity. Do we see them as perhaps like animals? I don't know. They're in human form. Essentially, they're in human form, right? So we don't look at them like, I wouldn't say we look at them like animals, per se. And lion would eat us. We say it's because it's evil, or some demons viewed like animals in that sense. I wouldn't necessarily say that. For usually animals are afraid of humans, right? In general. Okay, you got stronger animals. Let's say you got someone, a lion, you'll say, oh, not necessarily afraid of a human. Okay. A lion is not normally going to attack a human. Either unless it's provoked, or let's say, you don't go near a lion that's hungry because they may think you're dinner. Yeah. So going near a lion, and you don't necessarily know this either way. You don't know the last time it's eaten. So is it normal, right? Let's say like this. Is it normal for an animal to attack? We'll use a lion. For a lion to attack a human. Is it normal? No. But it's one of the things we say on Yom Kippur, by the Unasan Soikip. We say it by Musaf and Rosh Hashanah, say it by Musaf on Yom Kippur. Who by water, who by fire. And we also say who gets. Who there are people. Unfortunately, they're going to die horrific death. They're going to get eaten. They're going to be ripped to shreds by animals. Yeah. Now we would say in general that if that happens, that's obviously God's judgment. And it happened here. Alligators eat babies, and you can eat humans, and snakes. You have these big cobras or whatever. That potentially could kill humans. In general, it shouldn't happen. In general, famous story of Hanina ben Dosa. There was a snake attacking people, right, biting people, and people dying. Yeah. So Rabbi Hanina ben Dosa wasn't afraid. Went right up to the snake. Snake wrapped itself around him, bit him, and then the snake died. So what happened? So what does the Gemara say? What does the Gemara say? The Gemara says that that in the name of Chanina, I think it was Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa. Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa said, essentially, that snakes don't kill. What kills a person? Transgressions. So therefore, God used the snake to get to the person, to kill the person, because the person was ripe to be killed because of transgression. But he wasn't afraid of it. He was, Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa didn't have what to worry about. Not, he goes, he's so conceited, thinks it's God's gift to the world. No, he knows that only sin can kill a person. But a person only lived to 120 anyway, okay. But in general, a snake attacks somebody, and even if the snake kills the person, let's say the snake kills the person. If the snake kills the person, it means the person was ripe for sin, and therefore God used the snake to get to them. That's what it means. We'll get too gross or too scary over here. So if a lion would eat us, would that be the norm in general? You say lions are carnivorous, they hunt their prey, blah, blah, blah. True. When they come in contact with the human, does that mean that they want to eat us? If they're hungry, yes. Stay away from hungry lions, right? But, if they're hungry, 100%. Right? But that's a different issue. In general, forget about them being domesticated somewhat or not. Yeah. Would that be the norm? Any animal. You take a giraffe, take an elephant, you take some animals, you'll say, okay, they're carnivorous, they hunt their prey, they're nasty animals, they'll attack to no end. Okay. If a person is clean of sin, relatively speaking, that animal shouldn't have an effect. Should not have an effect. Now, if God wants to take them that way, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. God will take you that way, right? Kind of nasty way to go. Okay. We can't say which way we're going to go. What's going to happen, but I don't think too many people would sign up for that, to get ripped to shreds by a lion or any of these other carnivorous animals. But the bottom line is that God could use that animal to attack, right? Because if an animal's got free will, that shouldn't happen. You're going to say, but you got to be careful. You see a bear in the wilderness. Yeah, bear's got, it's programmed DNA. That is true. Now, if you provoke it, obviously something can happen. And even if you don't provoke it, could a bear attack? That's its nature. Yeah, that's its nature. Right? So some animals, maybe that's their nature. They're going to attack anything. They're going to attack anything. Okay. Same, but there are some animals, not their nature. Not that, they'll be more afraid of humans than we are of them. So maybe it depends on which animal. Maybe. Some out in the wild, you can't trust them at all. Right? Not at all. Because they're wild. They're not domesticated. But at the end of the day, so you're going to say, these animals, are they pure evil? No. They're definitely not pure evil. They're programmed. 100%. Right? So the question is, you tell me lion's going to eat us. We wouldn't say it's because of its evil, right? It's because God is using that lion to get to us. Right? That's what he's doing. So are some demons viewed as animals? Again, I would say demons they're not in the same category. Why not? Because demons are essentially spiritual beings. That's what they are. They're essentially spiritual. So, it's kind of hard to, pinpoint. Why? Because they're in physical form. They're in physical form even though they're spiritual. Right? They do things like animals. They do things like humans. They do things like angels. Now, somebody asked 1 second. Let me just see here. Okay. Somebody asked, would a person know how to distinguish between a demon and an angel? No. Maybe someone on a high level, on a very high spiritual level. Maybe. Right? Maybe they could distinguish. Maybe. Most people, the average Joe, no. They're not going to be able to distinguish. There'd be no way to distinguish between between an angel and a demon. How did Abraham know it wasn't preparing a meal for a demon? Because Abraham knew. Right? Abraham knew. Because he was on that level. He was on a very high level. So he knew these were angels, not demons. Right? He knew that. Right? The question is, even though he knew it, how could he feed him? How could he feed him food if he knew they were angels? Right? But they were disguised, so to speak, disguised as humans. So you could ask the question, right? Legitimate question. You could ask, if that's the case, why did he feed him? Right? And not only that, why did he feed him milk and meats? Can't feed them milk and meat together. Right? If you get the entire Torah. Right? How can you feed them milk and meat together? Right? But essentially, how could they eat? If they're really angels in a human form, they're just in some sort of body. How could they eat? So some say they didn't eat. They appeared like they were eating, but they didn't. Right? That's one, that's probably the most popular explanation. Is that they showed like they were eating, but essentially they weren't eating. So that doesn't answer up the first question. Because the first question is, if he knows they're angels, he's going to be serving them food. So maybe possible answer, maybe want to minimize, the miracle here, that angels. Right? Yaakov also. Right? Yaakov, it says, V'yishlach Yaakov. Right? Malachim, he sent angels. One explanation is that's what he sent to Esau. So that means Yaakov recognized their angels. And he saw it from his father's house, saw it from his grandfather's house. So they for sure could recognize that someone was just a person or an angel. They could see through that. They were angels that came to Lot, and it was Passover. Right? Even he had some sort of merit. So in that sense, I would say they, people on a very high level, very high spiritual level, will know the difference. They for sure will know the difference whether it's an angel or a demon. Right? So, anybody else, they look at a person, can they tell, a normal person who keeps Torah mitzvah. Yeah. I'm not talking about using sorcery or any other things. Person who keeps Torah mitzvah, is it possible for them today? Is it possible for them to see angels? The answer is no. For most people, the answer is no. They're not on the level. Not on a level at all. Could some people be more spiritually inclined and see things? Maybe. Heard such a thing. I don't know if it's true. I don't know if it's true, but I would say for most people today, unless you're on a very high spiritual level, you ain't seen angels. Nobody's seen angels. And nobody today, as we mentioned before, is prophecy. Right? Prophecy is either little children or imbeciles. Nobody has prophecy. There are some great rabbis today that may have what we call divine inspiration, what we call Ruach HaKodesh, which is a lower form of prophecy. Okay, is that prophecy like we're talking, the prophets and the time of the prophets? No. They're not even close. It's the lowest form, one of the lowest forms. Okay, that's for this generation. But are there great people that could have it? Yeah. Are most people going to have it? Never. I don't care what people say. It's not prophecy. It's not prophecy. Someone's going to say, yeah, God spoke to me and this and that. God speaking to me, let's understand. Let's understand the statement. What does it mean that God spoke to me? It means I heard something, and it's clear to me that God's communicating with me. For a prophet outside of Moses himself, they would never see God face to face. In other words, like just a person speaking to their friend, they were always in a trance. They were always knocked out. They weren't awake when there was a revelation. When a person had a revelation, different from Moses, because Moses is the greatest of all prophets. But even with all that, they recognize 100% it's clear. They recognize it's clear. They're having this prophecy. For anybody today saying, there's that, it's got to be clear as day, clear as sunlight, that God is communicating them. Not that they think, not that they imagine, no. It's got to be clear like the back of your hand. If it's not clear, like I think this is what God's saying to me. God, this generation, according to all sources, he ain't speaking to anybody. That's clear. It's clear from a number of sources, right? So prophecy is something very specific. Prophecy means it's clear you're having a prophetic experience. It's clear to the person. And when a person has a prophetic experience, when a person is having a prophetic experience today, what does that mean? What essentially does it mean? It means that they understand 100% it's a prophetic experience. There are no doubts. Can't be any doubts. Not just, well, I'll wait for God to speak to me, I'll wait for this, I'll wait for that. Okay, you wait your whole life. It doesn't mean you're having any prophetic experience at all. So what is the person seeing? What do they feel? I can't answer that. I have no idea what they feel. They can feel something. It's like a placebo. Doesn't mean anything. They may think something. They may will something or try and will something and say that's the way God's communicating and taking care of business and this and that. There's no way to prove that at all. At all. Even the lowest form of prophecy, a person knows. They know that there's something extraordinary going on. They know. But that's not any Tom, Dick, and Harry coming off the street. That's not when someone who doesn't know the Aleph Beis, unless they're using sorcery. Using sorcery is a different thing. And having power over angels and that's a totally different thing. Then anyone can tap into. You don't need to be on a high spiritual level. You have to be on any spiritual level. All you have to do is, know how to say a few incantations, and that's it. Do what you need to do, and you can have that kind of power. But in general, a revelation, and someone has contacted me recently telling me this, looked at some material. I said, it's like, oh, it's very simplistic, it's very this, very that. And it's not verse talking about revelation, like revelations he's had. Okay? Ain't going to be a student of mine, guy with fruitcake. Essentially. Who's having revelations today unless you're on psychedelic drugs and you think you're having something? Right? These are very specific things. Very, very specific things. But this has gone by the wayside. This is something that prophets prepared for years and years. This is not something coming overnight. This is not something where someone had this experience, that experience, whatever. This is something that people were preparing that prophecy. They had prophecy schools. They had teachers teaching them how to be ready for prophecy. How to be in a spiritual level high enough for prophecy. That's not this generation. It's not even close. I don't care what anybody says. Right? Not even close. No one's speaking to God. Nobody. Directly. That God's coming back to them and telling them, a person has a dream. They see a vision. Now, most dreams don't mean anything. We mentioned this many times. Most dreams mean absolutely zero. But a dream over here, if it's a king, it's a head of state or something, that could be some sort of prophetic thing, give them a message or whatever, something to do that God wants them to do. But in general, the average Tom, Dick, and Harry, so to speak, or Jane or whatever, won't discriminate here. And then prophecy. It doesn't exist. Right? It doesn't exist. And I've heard this many, many times. People will say that, God's going to come speak to me. It's a very Christian thing. Maybe God's going to speak to you. Who does God speak to today? The Gemara says, we're talking 2,000 years ago, 2,500 years ago, that God is speaking to children and imbeciles. That's who he's speaking to. Figuratively. He's not speaking to anybody today. And if he would, let's say he comes to somebody, he has to give them a message or whatever. Either that person really, really worked on themselves, so they have this revelation, but again, they're going to be asleep, not going to be awake. Certainly not going to be awake. They're going to be in a trance. That's how prophecy works. right? As far as I understand. But this is something that took preparation. Took years and years of preparation. So if someone's been on the dark side doing other things, they don't have so much Torah mitzvahs under their belt. No offense, you ain't having prophecy. It ain't happening. It's not gonna happen. Right? This is the reality. What do people say? Yeah, God spoke to me, he came to me. That dreams. Some people remember their dreams, some people don't remember their dreams, some more, some less. Dreams, 99% of dreams don't mean anything. If they keep coming back, a similar thing, okay, could be a message. Could be something. Some dreams are significant. Vast majority, they don't mean anything. They're just, it could be something you ate. It could be a manifestation of what's going on in your life. What's gone on over the last number of days, weeks, or whatever. Right? Not to mention the fact most people don't remember their dreams, but even if they would, the vast majority don't mean anything. They don't mean anything, but I hear this a lot from a lot of different places. A lot of different places. I had this dream, I had that dream. Again, in Tractate Brachot, one of the last chapters speaks about dreams. If you see this, then it means this. If you see that, it means this. But in general, you don't even go by that. Because most dreams don't mean anything. They, some could be significant, yeah, but the vast majority, again, it's not my opinion. Many hold this. Except maybe for a king. If it's a king, God has to give them information for whatever reason. Okay. It has to be someone significant. It's not your average run-of-the-mill person, period. Again, the lowest form of prophecy that some great rabbis might have today, very few, it's called divine inspiration, right? But that's like the lowest level. Someone saying, yeah, God's coming to me and speaking to me and telling me things. Not by us. We don't, I'm not going to say what it is because it's not prophecy. That I can guarantee. A lot of sources, it's not prophecy. It's nothing. It's what a person thinks in their mind. Okay. Person can think whatever they want. And, then someone will say, but I prayed for something, God answered my prayers. What does that say? That's not prophecy. Who says it's prophecy? You prayed for something, you got your answer. Okay. So God answers my prayers. Yeah, a lot of times he doesn't. Even if he does. Does that mean you're a prophet? No. Does that mean you're close to a prophet? No. God can answer a person's prayers. Okay. Prophecy is something very specific. That, when a person has a revelation, it's clear as day. Black and white. Not even a question. They're having this prophecy, they're having this communication with God. Clear. No doubts. No doubts at all. Yeah. No one's having prophecy today. Nobody. What they're having, what people say, I can answer. I had a dream, and JC came to me, and this, and I saw this, and I saw that. Yeah, wishful thinking. Could it really be? I don't think so. Shouldn't say I don't think. I know. So why do they say it? Who knows? They say a lot of things. People say a lot of things, make up a lot of things. The placebo effect. They really feel it. They really feel this presence. If it's not sorcery, then it's a placebo. Placebo means nothing. It's absolutely zero. Now, can some people have like more of a sixth sense and feel things more spiritual level? Maybe. Right? I'll entertain that possibility. That could be. But it's got to be someone, it can't be just someone out of the blue. It's got to be someone who worked on it, worked on themselves. But we're not the same class of people we were 2,000 years ago or more. They're much greater, but even if you want to say it's prophecy, right? Just make the point. Even if a person wants to say, yeah, having, whatever level of prophecy, it took years to develop. Yeah. What does that mean, years to develop? It means they had to work on themselves in so many ways. They had to work on themselves to reach a level of prophecy. It didn't happen by watching a couple videos or thinking you know more than you do. Not even close. Not even close. Go back, read the Ramchal, right? The Ramchal, Derech Hashem, in the way of God, speaks about it. He speaks about prophecy, right? He tells you what it is. He tells you what you had to do to get there, right? In certain terms. But, he makes it clear. So if that's what's going on, no one can say, I felt this, I felt that. Okay, I can't say what you felt, right? But if prophecy is a very specific thing, which that's what we're saying it is, then you ain't having it. You're not having it. It's not even divine inspiration. But that does not negate the fact, let's make clear, that does not negate the fact that a person cannot have his prayers answered or her prayers answered. That's not prophecy, right? That means God had mercy. He listened to what you said. Very good. He answered your prayers. Does he answer your prayers all the time? No. Right? Think about all the things we pray for and see what answers we got. Other times we get our prayers answered, sure. Right? Now, everybody can say it. So, yeah, I prayed to JC, and this is what happened, and got this prayer answered, that prayer, okay. Yeah, he ain't having too much power, I guarantee that, to do anything today. But, okay, right? Doesn't mean a person's prayers can't be answered. But, person's prayers answered has nothing to do with prophecy. Nothing. Yeah, someone asks, okay, talking about demons here, right? Very hot topic here. Can they pretend to be, for example, politicians, rabbis, Christian leaders, to cause damage through deception? No. I definitely don't think so. These people today, let's, the Messiah cannot come, the Vilna Gaon says in Evan Shema, right? Elijah Vilna, more than 250 years ago, says in his work, Evan Shlema, one of the things that the Messiah cannot come unless the Erev Rav is destroyed. The Erev Rav, the mixed multitude, has to be destroyed. Now, what's the obvious question? Who's the mixed multitude? Who's considered the mixed multitude? Right? So the Vilna Gaon holds, they could be Jewish politicians. Certainly people in power in Israel, right? Or any Jewish organization. You can have these people in power that are going against everything the Torah says, right? And fighting against the Orthodox Jews. Yeah. So they're not dressing up, as these type of people. They don't have the capability. But it says, Lev Malachim biyad Hashem. The heart of the kings are in the hands of God. Now, what does that mean? It means that for politicians, you don't have to dress them up, have demons dress up as politicians. He can let them be politicians. That's not a problem. Keep them in the same form. And he directs them. He uses them like puppets. When he wants them to do certain things, he'll put this idea in their head or the head of their ministers or whatever to do this and do that. Yeah. Why? For a greater purpose. What's the greater purpose? Whatever God decides. Whatever God decides. But that's what it says. Lev Malachim biyad Hashem. Their hearts are in God's hands. God's using them like silly putty. Now, does that mean they don't have free will? Of course they have free will. They're not robots. Why do all of a sudden, Mr. Putin over here, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, decides to invade Ukraine? Right? And he's still going. They're still going at it. However long. If you thought, it's going to be World War III, he'll invade other places. No, I don't think he's got any delusions of grandeur. He just want to take over some other places to make Russia stronger. Does he have any ideas to take over the world? I don't think so. I don't think he's got any ideas to do that. Wants to keep it close at home. Okay, whatever. But why all of a sudden now? Why all of a sudden now? So I don't have an answer. If you tell me he's pulling the screws and he says, yeah, we're going to go in there and make some an egomaniac. And he says they make us look bad. And we want to make Russia stronger. Okay, there's a greater purpose. Now, you ask me, the $1 million question is, what's the greater purpose? I don't know. I'm still waiting to see. Still waiting to see. Now, if you would have told me that everyone's going to get involved and they got nuclear weapons Then it could you get to World War III, and that could be Gog and Magog and the end of the world, and the Messiah comes. Okay, that's a benefit. That is a benefit. Or they're just going at each other and, I don't know, stalemate. It'll stop. It won't stop. I don't know. Right? My people were talking World War III. Yeah, no one's getting involved in that. No one's interested in getting involved. And, same thing what's going on here. Even though right now it's a ceasefire, we'll see. Israel's not stopping. They're not stopping to get all the horses back and they dismantle them totally. Could that get other countries involved? So I mentioned this before. Yeah, it could. It very well could. Yeah, you got Hezbollah could get involved. Doesn't seem like they're gonna get so much involved. But at the end of the day, you have these other nations nearby. People start to get killed. Couldn't they say, why are we doing this? Because of the Jews, right? And they can say exactly what the Malbim says by Gog and Magog. Exactly that. They can march to Jerusalem and say, hey, we're doing this for the sake of the Jews. Let's fight against the Jews. Then the Messiah comes. Is that a possibility? Possibility. It is definitely a possibility. Is it going to happen that way? Nobody knows. Nobody knows. I mean, they're doing a good job right now, dismantling their tunnels and this and that. They got a long way to go. They got a long way to go. Yeah. But you see what's going on in the world, powder keg. World is a powder keg, and you have tens of thousands of millions of people being pro-Hamas. You have some people saying what happened October 7th never happened. You got other people saying, this is a resistance movement, and this is what happens. But you got everyone else saying, from Palestine to the sea, we'll be free. That means there are no Jews. And that's all over the world. It's not just in one place. It's in their charter. It's everywhere. Their goal is to annihilate every single Jew, but it doesn't stop there. It does not stop there. They want to take over the world. That's their goal. Right? That's pretty clear. I think that's pretty clear. Now, you got a lot of significant Muslim minorities, right? In the States, all over Europe. Yeah, creating havoc. Absolute havoc. Now, if I was a betting man, would I say, with all the money I don't have, would I say that's the way it could end up? Yeah. I'd put money down on that. Is it going to happen? My opinion, is it going to happen? Nobody knows. Nobody knows. Right? You got Yemen getting involved. You got, Syria doing some stuff a little bit. You go what's going on up north. I mean, okay, they're not necessarily so significant per se. Could that whole world just decide, okay, we're going against Israel and everyone's going to fight? Could. I'm not saying it will. Not saying it will, but I definitely think, it could. Right? So at the end of the day, what's God doing over here? All of a sudden, out of nowhere, Hamas attacks. I mean, this is the most serious attack they've ever done. Right? No question. Since 9/11. I don't think there's any question. Yeah. So that being said, Israel saying, okay, we're going to go in, we have to dismantle them. Regardless of what world opinion says. So for a while, for a little bit, they had world opinion behind them, and now they don't. And now this chaos all over. So why did it happen now? And what's going to be the aftermath? Nobody knows. Nobody knows. Everybody agrees, though. This is the generation of coming to the Messiah. That nobody disagrees. And that the Messiah is right around the corner. He's going to come within the next 200 years. But again, these things happen because God has a picture. God knows what he's doing. The problem is he doesn't tell anyone. He's not telling anyone. So nobody knows. Anybody's guess. But nobody would have dreamed such a thing could have happened. Nobody. Everyone was caught sleeping here. Okay. Yeah. So God put it into their minds not to think anything was really happening, even though there were things going on close to the border. And they thought they were just doing exercises, different things. And they got caught. Why did they get caught? Because God wanted it to happen. Why did he want it to happen? Can't answer. Right? We don't know. We don't know. Question is, what's going to be the end result? That's the question. Everybody sees all the tunnels and trying to blow up all the tunnels and whatever. You still got, thousands of people in these tunnels are trying to get out so they can kill them. And this is going to be a long, drawn-out thing. It's not going to be, not going to be a short-time thing. And trying to get rid, get out the hostages, and all that. Okay. So there's a master plan. There's a master plan. We're not given the information. Now, most people would have thought because of the destruction of World War II, they would have brought the Messiah. Didn't. Right? For whatever reason. Could have been ready to bring the Messiah. Didn't happen. Right? This too. I mean, listen, things are getting closer. My Rabbi mentioned it's like being across the wall. Messiah's right across the wall. When's he going to come? If anybody's guess, it's going to come soon. In the next few hundred years. Like I tell people, I get a front row seat. Let's see. Right? Let's see what's going to be. But, I think we're safer in Israel than anywhere else. But the whole world, we see it's powder keg. Powder keg. So God does not need to. So my short, long answer, again, I'm not getting good at answering these things quickly. Right? The short, long answer is God is not using demons dressed up as politicians to get his work done. He doesn't need to do that. He's got other usage for them. He'll use the politicians to do whatever he wants. He'll put it in their head, or other people's heads to convince the politicians to do this, that, and the other thing, right? And God has a plan. God has a plan. He's playing with them, right? The heart of the kings are in the hands of who? Of God. So God's using them like silly putty to do whatever he wants to accomplish. Now, if this is going to bring the Messiah quicker, and it's going to be a whole snowball, turn of events of what's going to be, okay, then we see the greater picture. But we can't see the greater picture now, and nobody knows. Okay, so you got up north, they're sending all these rockets, different things. Israel keeps bombarding them. They're trying to infiltrate, different places. Israel keeps them at bay. Right? Israel's not interested in having a ground war. Lebanon is not interested in the ground war. Totally not. To get Hezbollah. They're not interested. Whole place has been decimated for years. They're trying to rebuild. They don't want total destruction. They're not interested. But who's the proxy? Who's all behind it? Is Iran. Right? And that's one of the prophecies. This is going to be war. Gog and Magog. It's going to start with the king of Paras. Medrash and Tehillim. In the book of Psalms. Who's the king of Paras? Who is Paras? Is Iran. Now, could it happen that way? Sure. So how are you going to get everyone? How's God going to get all these people involved? So any number of ways. They're going to be fighting against each other. You got Edom, which is Esau, fighting against Yishmael. That's how the Bible sets it up. That's what you have. And it's not just, like I've seen many people say, it's not just a war about Israel here and trying to destroy Israel. This is the entire world, entire free world. That's what they want. That's exactly what they want. So yeah, are they using these Christian leaders for that and all this, dress them up as demons? No. God doesn't need to do that. They just put ideas in their head or people around them. They get convinced. They do certain things. They do God's bidding. And then the end result is what he wants. That's the end result. The only problem is he ain't telling us. It's definitely not good. I don't think there's any question about that. But yeah, this could be steps further in the right direction for the Messiah to come. Could be. It could take 2 years, it could take 5 years, it could take 5 months, it could take 2 days. Who knows? Right? Who knows? But, he's not using demons for that. Right? You're not using demons for that. Abraham was a holy man, and holy men have the gift of discernment from Hashem. Yeah. In other words, he could see, and Isaac could see, Yaakov could see, even Esau could see. They could tell who was it. That was the whole thing. I mean, it's a mind-boggling thing. You think about it, because Yaakov said, "Why is it? Why is he going to waste the time of angels? Go to Esau." Right? There are 3 things that Yaakov did. Right? First, he tried to buy him off. Right? He tried to buy him off, bribe him. Second thing he tried to do, what he was prepared to do, certainly prayer. Right? And the third thing is, if he had to, he would have gone to war. These are 3 things. Right? But what did he do at the beginning? He tried to bribe him. Now, even in spiritual terms, because he understood what an angel was. right? Let's make clear. There's a famous story of the Chofetz Chaim. I think I've mentioned this before. It's a good story, though. There was a decree made. There were many decrees made against the Jews at the time of the Chofetz Chaim. One decree, I don't forget what the decree was. Chofetz Chaim told one of his students, he says, get a lot of money together, a ton of money. Go bribe the king and tell the king that, to get rid of this decree. So the student is terrified. Terrified. So Chofetz Chaim said, you have nothing to worry about. Take a ton of money and go and bribe the king. So he's like, all right, he gets a lot of money together. And he goes and he gets an appointment with the king. And he says, in the name of the Jewish people, blah, 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 we want you to rescind, get rid of this decree. Get rid of this decree. And the king's like, why should I do that? Why would I get rid of this decree? Right? Why essentially would I get rid of this decree? So the student puts this bag of money and jewelry and all, in front of the king. The king looks at it, starts screaming at him, says, get out of here. What do you think? You can bribe me? Who do you think you are? He said, I never want to see your face here again. Right? Anyway, he got out with an inch of his life. Runs back the whole time, and he says, I did it. The king wouldn't take it. He told me I can't come back. He's going to kill me, whatever. Chofetz Chaim said, go back there. I told you, go back there, give him a ton of money, an absolute absurd amount of money. And he'll rescind the decree. He said, I can't go back there. Chofetz Chaim said, just do it. Just go and do it. He gets another appointment with the king. The king looks at him and says, oh, you again? What are you doing here? He said, I came in the name of the Jewish people, rescind this decree. He goes, are you crazy? I just told you I could kill you right now. He takes this big sack, jewels, gold, this and that, puts it on the table. King looks in. He starts screaming at him. He goes, next time I see your face, you're dead. I'm going to make you into dog meat. He's like, get out of it, whatever. And he flees. He gets out with an inch of his life. Goes back to the Chofetz Chaim and said, that's it. I did what I was supposed to do. And, he's going to kill me. He told me he's going to make me into dog meat. That's my language. Yeah. He's going to make me into dog meat. He's going to carve me up. Chofetz Chaim says, you didn't give him enough money. I told you to give him an absurd amount of money. Go get a ton money. Go in front of him. Go bribe him and get this taken care of. He says you have nothing to fear. The person's petrified. Went twice. And the Chofetz Chaim told him to do it. He's afraid. Chofetz Chaim said you have nothing to worry about. Just do what I told you to do, and it'll be taken care of. Finally, he's got a whole bunch of sacks of gold and silver and this. Barely can lift it himself, brings it wheelbarrows, who knows what. Makes his appointment with the king, gets in. King says, oh, you again? But then he sees he's got 4 huge sacks, gold and silver. He says, I come in the name of the Jewish people. He's like, all right, forget the Jewish people. Let me see what you got. Let me see what you got over here. Right? He's got sacks and sacks full of gold and money and rubies and all that. So the king looks at all the gold, looks at all the money, looks at this Jew, looks back at the money, looks at the Jew, and he goes, okay, I'm going to write it up right now. I'm going to write the whole thing up. He said, I rescind this decree, whatever, here you go, stamp by the king. Right? You can give it to whoever you want. Plaster all over the place. It's like, oh, thank you very much, whatever, get out of here, and whatever. And he left. He goes back to Chofetz Chaim, tells him what happened, shows him the thing, and the Chofetz Chaim says, I told you, this is what you needed to do. So his student asked him, how'd you know? How did you know I could bribe the king? He said, what do you think Yaakov did to Esau? What do you think the first thing he did? He tried to butter him up, tried to bribe him. So the Chofetz Chaim said, Esau can be bribed. When he came back the first time, I said, for sure he didn't give enough money. Second time, same thing. Because it's something that's proven. Esau can be bribed. Now, you have to know when to do it and how and all this, It's how politics works. It's all about bribes. Right? Probably, in most countries. You want things done, there are kickbacks, there are bribes. Whatever, but Esau can be bribed. So the Chofetz Chaim said, I learned it right from the Torah. Exactly from the Torah. That Esau can be bribed. Mention one other thing, there's an interesting thing. Why does Yaakov split up? Why does he split up the camps? Because he thought that if Esau kills part of one camp, the other camp will flee. The other camp will get away, and Jewish people will not be destroyed. The Chofetz Chaim says that in Jewish history, there's always going to be a remnant left. He said even before the war, he said even if Judaism, even if the Jews get destroyed in Europe, there'll be Jews in America. There'll be Jews in South America, Jews in Canada, in Israel, whatever. So he was foreseeing the fact there could be destruction in one place, but the Jewish people survive somewhere else. Now, Chofetz Chaim asks, how do I know? How do I know at least God says he's never going to totally destroy the Jewish people? So if they're never going to be totally destroyed, there's always going to be a remnant. Yeah? There's always going to be a remnant. Now, how does he know that? How does the Chofetz Chaim know that? He knows that from this week's parsha. That Yaakov split up his family. So if Esau pounced on one, the others would escape. Right? And he says on himself, he said, if God forbid, the Chofetz Chaim said, if European gets wiped out, European Jewry gets wiped out, the rest of Jewry will still be around. They will wipe out everybody. Because that's the divine promise. Now, who's going to survive in the end? Very good. It's a good question. Right? Very good question. Very good question. Okay. So I get into all this because, at the end of the day, God has his ways getting things done, and he can use politicians and whoever to do it in order to get the world to a certain place for things to happen. The only problem is we're not given that information. That's the problem. We don't necessarily connect the dots. Sometimes more obvious, sometimes less obvious. But we don't always connect the dots. We don't see the future. We can guess, we can theorize and say, it might be like this, might be like that. I will tell you what Mori Rebbe would say. Or Rebbe going to Moshe Stern Moshe, this should be well. What would he say in such a case? He goes, what are you talking about all this stuff for? Forget about it. Forget about trying to figure it out. You got to learn more Torah. You got to say more Tehillim, right? You got to say more Psalms, protect the people of Israel, protect the soldiers, right? That's what it's all about right now. He's not talking about the coming of the Messiah. He says the Messiah is right around the corner. He's not saying, he's coming tomorrow, per se. He's not saying. But what he is saying is we got to strengthen ourselves in the Emunah, in our faith and belief in God. We got to strengthen ourselves. We have to strengthen ourselves in learning Torah, to offset what's going on. Could it be the beginning and the end and this and that? Sure. Could be. Is it going to be? Anybody's good. Anybody's good. Yeah. Someone mentions, is it possible to accidentally use sorcery? No. How do you accidentally use sorcery? Yeah. It's done through a certain way. Person uses a Ouija board. That's not accidental. Person uses certain names of God, different things that power over angels. That's not circumstantial. If a person said something, they didn't necessarily know what they were saying, but it happened to be an incantation, maybe they didn't know what they were doing. Maybe I would agree. Yeah, something like that could happen, but no. I wouldn't say that. It has to be something that you're doing, that you yourself know that you're doing, and it's causing this, right? It's not unintentional. If a person, again, you don't have to be on a high spiritual level to be able to do this. If a person happened to say something, and it happened to be an incantation and something happens, okay, but it's not usually going to be that way. It's usually going to be someone knows what they're doing, and it's intentional. When should you be worried about dreams? There are dreams. It's what we call chatavas halom. When a person's really worried about a dream, if they're really worried about a dream, there's certain things you say that you can say to alleviate that, to alleviate the confusion or whatever. There are stories of people having dreams. People having dreams, let's say that they're supposed to go somewhere the next day, and because of the weather and this and that, they had a forewarning, so to speak, that if they go that route, they're gonna, the car's gonna skid off the road, they're gonna, it's gonna go in the lake, they're gonna drown. right? So they had this dream, let's say, a few times. Now, I know of a few stories where people went to rabbis and said, I had this dream, it's something I should be worried about. And they said, no, dreams don't mean anything. And what happens? What they said in their dream, came true. Now, is it the rabbi's fault? No. And even when they went to the shiva, they went to the mourner's house, or whoever was mourning, and the family said, but he went to you. He went to you with his dream. Yeah, how could you tell him that dreams don't mean anything? So what the rabbi answered? He answered very simple. He said, if you would have come to me today, you would have come to me tomorrow, and you had this dream, I would have told you the same thing. I would have told you the exact same thing. Dreams don't mean anything. So why the person die that way? Okay, that's what it's supposed to be. But, dreams we don't take seriously. We do not take seriously. Now, someone can say, I had a dream that, I don't know, they were thrown off a cliff. I don't know. Whatever it may be, something that startled them. Does that mean it's going to happen? No. Now, I think in most prayer books, it says what we call chatav v'salom. Person can, you say certain things and do it in front of 3 people and they nullify it. They nullify this bad dream. They say, you don't have to worry about it, whatever, and that's it. So, in general, most dreams are totally irrelevant. When should you worry about it? I don't know if you should ever worry about it. You can, let's say that's supposed to happen, let's say. But you have other merits that protect you, so, just a way of scaring the person, maybe. But in general, but at the end of the day, but what's going to be? What's going to be? Can't worry about it. You cannot worry about it. Is there anything I should be worried about? No. Because 99% of dreams don't mean anything. Again, I heard a number of stories where, a person had a certain dream, worried about it. They went to a rabbi and said, ain't morid and ain't mom. And they're like, they don't have any weight. These dreams don't mean anything. And something happened. Something happened because of this dream. Yeah. So is that the fault of the rabbi? No. Because that's what's brought down in a lot of sources. Dreams don't mean anything. If it happens to be someone who's a politician or something like that, it's different. That's totally different, right? That's more significant if they're a politician, let's say better, if they're a king. Then God could come to them trying to give them a message. That's something else. That I agree would be something else. But if it really bothers somebody, you get the same answer, right? I would think most rabbis are going to tell you the same thing, right? It's irrelevant. These things don't matter. Totally don't matter. Is there anything you should be worried about? I would say no. I would say, it could be anything from something you ate to just a manifestation of your thoughts. What you might have been going through the last 2 weeks, last month, the last few days, whatever. Right? That's where it's coming from in general. Even if you remember it, that's where it's coming from. Something to sleep over? No. Again, there is something that can be said because it bothers the person. It really bothers the person. Okay. Does that mean it's going to come true? No. But obviously, if you're going to go in front of 3 people because it bothers them, whatever it may be, I don't know, maybe they see someone's getting killed in a car accident, or getting on a plane and something happens, or who knows what. Yeah. So there is what to be said. Because, if you say, well, 100%, you don't have to worry about it, so what, why do you have this prayer? Why do you go in front of 3 people to try and get nullified? Yeah, because it shakes them up. It bothers them. Now, it doesn't mean it's true. Let's make that clear. It doesn't mean it's true at all. But it bothers them, a person shaken up by it. So that eases them. It'll ease their mind. They went in front of 3 people. They said certain thing. They nullify it. Very good. Yeah, it puts them at ease. Right? But you ask the questions, good questions. And that is that if they don't really mean anything, then why do you have to do that? Because it bothers the person. Right? It's something that seriously bothers them. So if it seriously bothers them, then that eases the mind. That will ease the mind. Right? You have let's say, recurring dream. You have this nasty recurring dream. As we said, 99% of dreams mean nothing. Now, you're bothered by this dream. Okay, so, there's a certain formula you say, 3 people say, it's nullified, whatever, you don't have to worry. But again, someone will say, but if 99% of the time these dreams don't mean anything, why do that? How is that going to help if it doesn't mean anything, but it bothers the person? Now, someone could ask, if that is true, isn't that a lack of emunah? Maybe it's a lack of emunah in a certain way. Because God runs the world. And if God runs the world and he's in charge, what do I care what my dream says? Because 99% of all dreams are nothing. They're nothing. So it could be it's a lack of faith. But let's say it still bothers the person. If it still bothers the person, so let them go in front of 3 people and deal with it. Right? If it wouldn't bother a person, you wouldn't have to do it. But it shakes the person up. The question, so the fundamental question here is, why should it shake you up? Because it feels real. It feels as what's happening is what's going to happen. Yeah, it shakes the person up. So, it can be dealt with in a certain way. But if they don't really mean that much anyway, so the person shouldn't worry about it. Sometimes the person can have recurring dreams. And again, it could be the same theme. It could be the same theme. And it comes up, let's say it comes up a lot of times. Person under stress, let's say, or, there's a lot to do and you feel like you're never going to get it done. And, you woke up in the morning, and it was right before Shabbos, you realize nothing's prepared. There's no food prepared. The house is a mess. Something like that. That can come up a number of times. It's still insignificant. It just means you got to feel like you got to be better prepared, right? Or maybe you didn't prepare enough or whatever, right? But seemingly, it's meaningless, right? In that sense. And it's something where, a person feels, I don't know, every time they go outside, they're going to be stalked. Someone's going to come after them and this and that. Unless they, someone is like really stalking them or whatever. Also, not, what are you worried about? We live in a messed up world. It's true. But just because I thought something when I went to sleep or before I went to sleep or 2 weeks ago, whatever, it could be scary. I'm not saying not. Could very well be scary. And it doesn't mean there's anything to be worried about. I'll give an example. Take any scary movie. Any scary, like really scary movie. Oh, I can't believe they just cut this person up and this happened and that happened and whatever. It's all make believe. The whole thing is make believe. Never happened. Yeah. This is the same thing. Whatever reason a person has that dream and they're absolutely terrified. Whatever it may be, it's not in reality. We just mentioned, somebody who had this dream. The rabbi said, I don't have anything to worry about. And exactly what happened in the dream, they died from it. Or what did this rabbi say? Dreams don't mean anything. It was meant to be, it's meant to be, but, doesn't matter. Right? Doesn't matter. But, these things can shake us up. They definitely can shake us up. But if we understand God runs the world, and again, you have to put this into action all the time. If God's the one in charge and He runs the world, very good. So what do I worry about the dream? So in a certain sense, I would say it's a lack of emunah. But again, there is a way to fix it up. So therefore, someone wants to, they're bothered by it. It bothers them, even if it doesn't mean anything. That can happen. It doesn't mean the person's schizophrenic, right? It doesn't mean that they have psychological issues. It means that they're scared by it. It bothers them. It worries them. But if they understand God's the one in charge, and whatever's going to happen, He's the one in charge. Why am I worried about what a dream tells me? Or what happens in a dream? I shouldn't even worry about it. But if it bothers the person, okay. Right? There are ways to deal with it. Someone asked, I was reading Dead Screes over Shabbos. Dead Sea Scrolls, Valentine's Scribe were eerily similar, about between the sons of light, sons of darkness. Oh, yeah. Unfortunately, it's a lot of darkness. There's a lot of darkness. It's true. You have the whole world, most of the world, showing clear as day that they hate Jews. That's a pretty scary phenomenon. Mentioned last night in Pirkei Avos, someone just came in from England. Their son just had a boy. So he's telling me, with all the craziness going on in England, all the protests, pro Hamas and all that. You're saying, yeah, I get on the train. I have no idea. I'm sitting next to me on the train. See, here in Israel, it's very easy to know who the enemy is. You can, it's very rare. It happens. I'm not going to say it doesn't happen. It's very rare when you have Jews fighting against Jews. Crime Jews against Jews. In religious areas, doesn't exist. Doesn't exist. You don't need a police station in an Orthodox area. Nobody's stealing. If anyone steals, it's an Arab, usually. Unless it's secular Jews or whatever coming in. But usually it's the Arabs or both. Why? Because Orthodox Jews don't steal. Orthodox Jews in general are not violent. Right? So in any Orthodox community, right? So here in Israel, you don't need a patrol. What do you have a patrol for? The police going around, you don't need security. If you live in a place that there are Arabs, and there are a lot of Arabs around, okay, so you need security. But it's for the Arabs, not for the Jews. Certainly not. So you're right, there's a lot of darkness. There's a lot of darkness. But there's an amazing amount of repentance, of tshuva going on amongst secular Jews. I mean, you got tens of thousands of soldiers, not religious, wearing tzitzis. There's a whole tzitzis campaign. No atheists in a foxhole. Yeah, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. And you got people that are, that are realizing that, Shabbos saved them and, in different things. That they're recognizing, there's a creator and He's watching us and it's the power of Torah and mitzvahs. But there's a lot of darkness. A lot of darkness. Many years ago, there was a whole bunch of terror attacks and whatever. So I heard me about this once about Gog and Magog, and I asked them tongue in cheek. I said it has to get worse before it gets better, right? He's like, yeah, probably. Unless everyone repents, and then it comes very easy. But seemingly it's not going to be that way. So there's a tremendous amount of darkness. I don't think there's any question. I would definitely agree. Tremendous amount of darkness. I mentioned last night. in Pirkei Avos. As for our father, never. Imagine what's going on in the world today. And freedom from the, whatever, Palestine to the sea, whatever, aren't going to be any Jews. Imagine, especially in the States. We'll use the States as an example. Yeah, imagine these, all these universities and all these protests were against blacks or against Asians, right? We use blacks, not Asians. Yeah, let's use blacks. They've all been picked on a lot. I don't think compared to the Jews, I don't think it's nothing. But at the end of the day, they've had difficulty, a lot of difficulty, no question. But imagine if this hatred was, and people were marching left and right in all the universities, they have clubs all against blacks, just against blacks. What do you think would happen in this thing? Be civil war. They'd be burning down cities. They'd be burning down cities. Racists like no tomorrow. They would be burning down cities. Yeah. Why? It's a mind-boggling thing, right? At least I've heard, in England, they're making it a law. You say this stuff in public, you go to jail. You'll go to jail. Not going to happen in the States. I don't see anytime soon. Talking about doing things to combat anti-Semitism, but they're not talking about putting people in jail for what they're saying. So, presidents of university not saying anything. Not saying anything. So, there should be civil war going on. There could be anybody else. Asians, whoever. Indians, imagine all these Indians in America. Yeah, all these, Indians from India in America. And all of a sudden they started making marches against them. Forget how many of them there are there. Whatever. They started making marches all over against them. You don't think there'd be an uproar? Be an uproar. Why is there no uproar here? People talking a big game, this and that. Why is there no uproar? If it would be blacks, it'd be civil war. Nothing to talk about. I don't think there's anything to talk about. In fact, this happened to Jews, nobody cares. Nobody cares. A lot of darkness. Tremendous amount of darkness. Now, you can tell me different reasons. Mention this for anti-Semitism, jealousy, other things. Okay. But to this extent of hatred. Yeah. We're the most despised of anybody. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. We got, got great communities, a lot of Torah being learned, a lot of, yeshivas, girls' schools, this, that. So many good things going on. So many good things going on. And there's still unbelievable hatred. Unbelievable hatred. They come out of nowhere. There's always been hatred. Yeah. Before COVID, it was, it was bad. No question. COVID is people couldn't get out and do things. So, it went down. But then after COVID, things were bad. Things were bad. This is well beyond. Well beyond. Yeah, you're right. There's a tremendous amount of darkness. But there's a lot of light, there's a lot of good things going on amongst the Jewish people, and what they're doing for soldiers, and how much learning's going on, and how much we have to pay attention to what we do, and prayer and all. Yeah, there's a lot of good things. I mean, it's sad it has to come to this to wake us up. I would agree. I would definitely agree. But yeah, that you're gonna have. You're gonna have the fight, good against evil. And that came from the beginning of time. From the beginning of time. Even by Cain and Abel. And they had a disagreement, whatever it was, and he killed him. Cain got up and he killed Abel. Whatever reason. Yeah, God wanted him to repent. He wanted him to do tshuva. So, it's man's inhumanity to man. But see, everything is done in the world for the sake of the Jewish people. It's for us to wake up, and there's a serious wake up call. There's no question. It's scary everywhere. You walk outside looking like a Jew, you're in trouble. You might be asking for trouble. But the fact it's gone to this extent, but this is the fight. See, this is the fight that, Yishmael has a certain amount of power because, he did circumcision later. So he got like, I don't know, 100 years, 1,000 years. Was it 100 years? 100 years, I think, for every year they was like 12 or 13, so like 1,300 years. Yishmael, I think it's according to Zohar, that Yishmael is going to have a certain level of power. Going to have a certain level of power. Right? And then he's on his last legs over here. But we're not at the end yet. We're not at the end. But the more mind-boggling thing, and this is what I think people have to understand, is that as we said, anything was not rational. If it's not rational, you see what people are saying, and just the insanity and stupidity of not knowing the facts. Right? One of my personal pet peeves. Know the facts. You don't know the facts, keep your big mouth shut. Right? But this is what the Muslims do. Right? They feed on what? On lies. They feed on lies. And and the lies sell. I mean, someone trying to make a comparison. I mean, it's such a crazy thing. You got hostages being released, very good. Yeah, so someone's comparing. You got minors, the Palestinians being let go, and you got minors, of Jews being held hostage let go. Somebody answer, what are you kidding? Who are these minors that are sitting in Israeli jails? They're ones that tried to stab people, try to kill people. They don't have blood on their hands. They almost have blood on their hands. You want to talk about 2-year-olds and 4-year-old Israelis that are being held captive? You want to compare the two? Oh, a minor's a minor. Oh, really? Think a 14-year-old wants to kill a Jew, got a big knife. Yeah? That's the same. I mean, what people say is ludicrous. It's absolutely ludicrous, but it doesn't have to make sense. See, if people don't know, if people say, how can they perpetuate this over and over and over again? Because the lie sticks, people don't think. People don't think. Everybody knows, for instance, a lot of people want to claim we don't have a right to the land. Right? Forget about what it says, Genesis chapter 1, verse 1, what Rashi says over there, whatever. Right? But they know, how long has that moss been there? 1,300 years. Something like that. Didn't the Muslims come 1,300 years after the Jews? They built it on top of something. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Some people actually admitted it. They built it on what? On the Temple Mount. Gee, what was the Temple Mount? Who was there first? You cannot make this stuff up. You cannot make this stuff up. It's total ignorance. Right? So good. Somebody points out not just in London. I saw other places. I think I saw in Belgium, a few other places. Okay. It's not happening in America. Right? That's my point. It's not happening there. And I'm not, America's a bigger place. Right? So America's a bigger place, and it's happening so many different places all over. How come there's a law against it? Maybe they will make a law. How will I? How will I? But at the end of the day, yeah, there are some places doing something good. Yeah, but this again, if this was any other ethnic group and they've been picked on, they would be trashing the place. I don't think there's any question. Why? That. It's not just that; it's just the total ignorance of what they're saying. Watch any of these interviews with some bunch of idiots. They have no idea. They have no idea what Hamas stands for, what they've done. They interviewed some gays. Yeah, and they said, yeah, they said, you pro-Palestinian, pro-Hamas. So like, yeah, this is before everything happened. They said, oh, you realize that, if they, in their place where they live, if they're gays, they basically rape them and kill them and, behead them and all that. Then they show them a video of one of their quote unquote moderates saying this. Like, oh yeah, this, that. Conversation goes on to a few other things. They had no idea whatsoever about what's in vogue today. It is a scary thing. But if you understand a little bit what's behind it and what they're trying, what they're trying to say and what they're trying to do, it's mind-boggling. It's just mind-boggling, the power of the media, power of social media, and the fact that it's so easy, so unbelievably easy to sell this lie. Even worse, the Israelis are showing beyond the shadow of a doubt all the tunnels underneath the hospitals. and close to houses and all this, and where the street mitzvah. They're showing it. They're finally having to admit it. Even the holy BBC, they got to admit it. They finally got to admit it, but it's not making a dent. It's not making a dent. Right? They're not changing their tune. Not changing their tune. That's who they are. Okay, everybody knows that. Fine. But that's what's out there. It's just, and the majority of people are sucking it up. And we're committing mass genocide. It's you can't even, again, you can't even make this stuff up. You can't make it up. This is what is, this is what's out there. But I agree 100%. There's a tremendous amount of darkness. But the darkness goes down when there's light against it. So you got to bring the light out. What's the light? It's Torah. Got to learn it to the best of our ability. Got to continue to say, Psalms to him, and increase our knowledge, increase our prayers. That's the fight. That's the fight against it. That's the protection the soldiers have, etc. So, that's our obligation. That's for sure our obligation. But as we said, the evil inclination's on its last legs, right? Really on its last legs. And everyone agrees that Messiah is right around the corner. So, things are going to move pretty quick, or however it's going to work, and it's going to manifest itself, right? It's going to come to some conclusion eventually, right? It could be quicker, it could not be quicker, but it's it's a mind-boggling thing, because you in the points, we're going to keep making this point. The point is that, we got to put our best foot forward, but we have to remember one thing. And the one thing we have to remember is Yesh Lanu Rak Avinu Shamayim. We only have our Father in heaven. That's it. Can't rely on man, no question. You need to put our best foot forward, trying to get more protection, different things, very good. At the end of the day, God's the one in charge. He's the one controlling things. That's more, realizing that's more important than 300,000 people going to Washington. Yeah. They put their best forward, solidarity, very good. Make people aware of what's going on. Yeah. I get it. Right. But what's the point? The point is we're not in control. The point is we can't rely on man. You're not relying on Washington. You're not relying, Downing Street. You're not relying on any of these places. You have to rely 100%. God's the one in charge. That's it. That's the message. Right? And that's going to be constantly going to be the message, whatever happens. And we can't forget that. We can't think, look at what the IDF is doing, and they're taking, getting rid of these terrorists and those terrorists and plugging up the tunnels and blah, blah. Yeah, very good. Right? That needs to be done. Right? You need the army to do it. But if you don't have people praying for them, they're sitting ducks. And there are many times, we've given a number of examples where, it wouldn't be people for praying. They're outright miracles. Outright miracles. A lot more people should have been dead. And different things in Gaza. Okay, this is what needs to be done. No one disagrees. No one disagrees. At the same time, it's not the might of the army. It's not the might of the army at the end of the day. Yeah, there are people dying, too many people dying there. Places all, booby trap, powder keg, this, that. And, you could be losing a lot more. God forbid. But, one of the things my Rebbe said, when this whole thing started, right? One of the reasons this thing happened is to break the gaiva, the conceitedness of the army. Because they think we're doing everything. Yeah. And they got caught. They got seriously caught. And when all things are said and done, there's going to be an investigation. Heads are going to roll. I don't think there's any question about that. Right? Heads for sure are going to roll. So what's going to be? What's going to be the day after? The day after, go back to protest. That's what's going to be the day after. But we have to get the message, right? This is the message. And, again, you can have all the power in the world. You can have nuclear weapons. Don't Don't say we haven't, right? You can have nuclear weapons and all this. They're getting slaughtered, no pun intended, in the media. Slaughtered. And this is the only, what do you call it? This is the only democracy in the Middle East. It's the only democracy in the Middle East. And this, this is how you treat them. This is what you do. You throw them under the bus, totally under the bus. But it's been going on for years. It's not anything new. Like they'll keep saying Israel has the right to defend themselves, but they got to be careful with human lives. They got to be, they got to be careful with civilians. If they're being used as human shields, you can't be careful. What are you going to do? Nobody else is given this ultimatum. Nobody. Syria killed 600,000 of its own people with gas, nerve gas. Anybody say anything? Anybody remember, like, there was a whole protest in the streets down with Syria? Let's kill every Syrian. Yeah, Palestine to the sea, from Syria to the sea. We're going to make it free. Never. There's so many examples. So many examples. At the end of the day, we're different for a country that's the size of the state of New Jersey. What do we ever do to the world to make them hate us so much? Yeah, this is what it's supposed to be. People say, oh, it shouldn't be this bad. Okay. Sometimes better, sometimes worse. This is a huge wake-up call. And this is a wake-up call for us to understand God's the one in charge. Because if you're a secular Jew, you're going out of your mind. You are going out of your mind because this makes no sense. This makes no sense. And now they're going to second guess, like, who are my neighbors? Who are my neighbors over here? Maybe they want me gassed and dead also. Maybe they're saying it, maybe they're not. Who can you trust? This is what God's telling you. Can't trust anyone except him. That's it. We're all in it together. Right? Ain't so mechela alavinu shaba shamayim. Can't rely on anyone except God himself. That's what we see. It ain't about Congress, it ain't about Parliament, it ain't about nothing. None of these things. Good, they'll make some laws, maybe it'll help to a certain extent. People get prosecuted. Okay, maybe. Maybe. But think about it. All over. Tens of thousands of people. Tens of thousands of people. They don't see this by anybody. Anyone. Now, see what's going on in Ireland. This is heating up. You got migrants against people who live there. They don't want them. They don't want their problems. They don't want their problems. They don't want people, killing people, raping people, this, that. It's all kinds of riots. This is what's supposed to happen at the end of the day. This is a stuff against Yishmael. This is exactly it. The only question is, in my opinion, for what it's worth, how far does it go? That's the question. How far does it go? And there are places that are fed up with this, right? So some places will make laws. Very good. Very good. As they should. Why are we any different than anyone else? Why are we subhuman? Yeah. A lot more should be done in the States. I don't think there's any question. We'll see. We'll see what's going to be. But, at the end of the day, we're still going to be strong. We're going to be extremely strong. God knows what he's doing. Whatever it's going to be. I'm going to get up and I'm going to pray and I'm going to say what I have to say and I'm going to do what I have to do. I'm going to be the best JIT Jew in training or Jew I can be. I'm going to work much harder. Okay, God runs the world. Doesn't mean you have to be stupid. You can't be stupid, right? But at the same time, you got to do what you need to do. Like my Rebbe said, I kept arguing certain things in politics years ago. Finally said, listen, are you happy the way God runs the world 95% of the time? And I'm like, yeah. He said, the other 5% you understand in 10 lifetimes. Move on. Like, forget it. It's not going to matter. He's the one in charge. And he told me 100 times, tell me the same thing. Forget about all this, sit and learn. You know what they say and this and that. Right? Your obligation to sit and learn. That's what you're supposed to do. We're supposed to serve him the best of our ability. That's what we're supposed to do. It's hard. It's hard when you hear this. For me personally, hearing the same stupidity where people don't know anything, it's mind-boggling. It's absolutely mind-boggling. Perpetuating the same lie. That's what they're good at. That's exactly what they're good at. And that's what sells. And that's what's going on in the media. That's what's going on in social media. And it's just, if you know the history, you don't have to know it well. You just have to know the main parts. So if you know the main parts, you hear what they're saying. You're like, really? This is the best thing you got? The whole thing is a travesty of a mockery of a sham. The whole thing is just a total lie. Total lie. And imagine if we were on the offensive over here. If we started all this, imagine what it would be. This is just trying to defend yourself. But yeah, God's orchestrating all this for a much bigger thing. Could this really be the beginning and the end, as we mentioned? Yeah, could be. And he's just turning the screws exactly how he wants to do it. Okay. What's going to be, nobody knows. But yeah, it's a scary time. It's a scary time. So this is what's supposed to be in the end of days. This is what was already prophesied 2,000 years ago. More. That at the end of days, what do you have to work on the most? What is Emunah B'tachon, is our belief and faith in God. Because we're going to look at a lawless world. We're going to look at a world that makes no sense. It makes absolutely zero sense. And all we have is Torah. That's all we have. We have to put ourselves into it as much as possible. Let God do what he needs to do, and we need to do what we need to do. And we need to be better. So what should I work on? Everything. Work on anger, work on gaiva, work on being conceited, work on being a miser, work on a million things we need to work on. Even little things. Even a little bit at a time. Right? If I can do something to change a little bit at a time, that's already a huge thing. One thing God does not want, he does not want complacency. He does not want someone to say, oh, this is terrible, whatever. Jewish people, it always happens, and they move on. No. This is a major wake-up call. This is something you can't sleep on. The other times also, you got to get the message. The message is we got to be better. The message is it's for us. But you look at it and you say, wow, if we're God's chosen people, look what's going on. Look what's going on here. This is bad. This is bad. Right? Why is it bad? Because we need to get the message. We know it's all about us. But when you see there's so much hatred, you say, wow, didn't we just say this is what's supposed to be at the end of days? Yeah. This is what's supposed to be. But if we would do what we're supposed to do, this ain't going to happen. The Messiah can come in a totally different way. In a totally peaceful way. It doesn't look like it's going to happen that way. But, we have to get the message. And if you see terrible things that happen to Jews, it's because we need to be better. And we need to work hard. That's what we need to do. It's not easy. Person can say, what's the point? I pray and I work on this and that, and still these things happen. Don't worry about it. We got to do our best to protect ourselves, and this is the best weapon. Best weapon is Torah, the best weapon is mitzvahs. Right? And doing chesed, doing acts of loving kindness for others. That pushes away the darkness. As we always say, a little bit of light pushes away darkness. Yeah, any other questions? All right, I'm going to stop here. I do this every Sunday, 9 o'clock Eastern time, 4 o'clock Israel time. Anyone has any questions, find me on Facebook at Michael Chaim Kaufman, Beyond Orthodox Conversion Judaism, orthodoxconversion.com. Beyond Orthodox Conversion to Judaism on YouTube. There I got videos on the Torah portion of the week, Q&A, the Book of Leviticus, controversial issues, ethics for our fathers. You want to send me an email, rabbichaimkaufman@gmail.com, RBBICHAIMCOFFMAN @gmail.com, which I'm good. Beginning of the day, middle of the day,